Welcome to the continuing winemaking series of the Wine of the Month Club. We had a little dry spell there during the holidays. We got busy here, and things were great. And I trust all your wines are doing well, and your cellars are growing. And we have a distinct pleasure here today, having one of the pioneers in Oregon winemaking and Oregon family winemaking, and that's Michael Adelsheim. It's not Adelsheim.
Yep, right.
It's Adelsheim.
Yeah, a lot of people say Adelsheim or worse.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But it's German for home, actually home of nobility, but Heim means home. And so in spite of the fact that you think the S should be attached to the Heim, it's separated between the two letters.
Adelsheim.
For instance, that shoe company that we know of as Florsheim really is Florsheim.
Yeah, see, you told me off camera, and I think that's really fascinating. I'm going to start saying that properly to the shoe guys and let them go, well, no, it's wrong. You know?
Oh, you don't go to Florsheim shoes, do you?
Right, no. So, no, your family, when did the winery start in Oregon?
Well, the wine industry started in the mid-'60s, not with my brother, although we were in the group that's now considered the pioneers.
Right, yeah.
But as I was saying off camera again, basically there was an upsurge in the wine world of America, directly let's start again.
That's
basically, there was an upsurge of wine growing on the West Coast in the mid-'60s. It was kind of somewhat part of the cultural upsurge in America at that time. Fine food certainly came more to the fore at the same time. A lot of people date the change in California to when Robert Mondavi built his winery. That was the first winery built in Napa Valley since Prohibition. That was the mid-'60s. The mid-'60s, I think even 1966 or 67.
And when did Adelsheim establish?
Adelsheim founded in 71. The first guy came to Oregon and planted in 65.
Wow. And Pinot Noir, when did Pinot Noir become
well, that was the grape that everybody focused on. Sure, we were all experimenting with, sure, we thought Pinot Noir would be the grape because of how cool it was compared to the regions of America that had been chosen before to grow grapes. But nobody was really sure, so we all planted Riesling, we all planted Chardonnay, we even planted a little bit of Merlot.
Do you still have those plantings?
No, we tore them out years ago.
Right. Because of the Burgundian soil, or because of Burgundian-style weather? Is that what they chose?
It's actually neither one of those exactly, and actually the soil is extremely different. The soil tends to be either sedimentary, i.e. dead critters from the bottom of the ocean, or volcanic with a lot of clay in it, which is very different than the limestone of Burgundy. Our weather patterns are also different in that Europe tends to have the same amount of rainfall in June as they have in January, where our rainfall is the same bell curve that California has. We're rainier, but we have our rainiest months in January and December, but very dry summertime.
Which is great for grapes.
The real similarity comes from the fact we're about as far north as Burgundy.
So, we're going to start with a grape that isn't from Burgundy.
Well, it is originated from Burgundy. The Pinot family originated, and there are growers in Burgundy who, I won't name them by name, but have Pinot Gris in their vineyards. Matter of fact, in one region just north of Beaune, I can't remember the name right now, most of the white Burgundy is actually a blend of Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, and Chardonnay.
Pinot Blanc, I've heard of. Pinot Gris. Now this, what I loved about this, first of all, full palette of wine. I mean, you get lots of flavors coming through this Pinot Gris. It's a complete departure than what you might get from Italy in their Pinot Gris.
Because it has lots of flavor.
It has lots of flavors, and you've got a little oak in this.
Although the oak is really only to add some richening. It doesn't pop out as oak. But we keep our crop levels as pretty close to the same level as our red Pinot Noir, so we get a lot of natural intensity as well.
It's wonderful flavors, like you got kinds of melon.
It's very dry, crisp, yet mouth-filling. So it is almost a wine that's all things for all people.
A great balance, and that's important, especially because a lot of people... Now, my personal opinion, wines from the north of Italy that are made in Pinot Grigios should be crisp, light, short-lived, lots of acid. That's what they're meant to do up there. I don't agree with oak aging, some of these Santa Margaritas and things like this. No. But in this case, because of the differences in the climate and the soil, you get a full flavored wine out of this Pinot Grigio.
Yeah,
Pinot
well,
Gris.
We are in the New World, and so even though we're farther north than most of what people think of when they think of New World, we do still get a lot of, we get some richness, more richness than you do tend to find in Europe.
Gorgeous. I think we're going to bring some of that in, Patrick. I want you to bring in a couple cases of all these, actually. Now, this one intrigued me to no end, and it's in a hock bottle, which is interesting, too. But this is, how do you say the grape?
It is like saying the word oak, Auxerrois.
Auxerrois, and this is a cousin of?
It's a cousin, well, it's a sister of Chardonnay. It is a cousin of Pinot Blanc. It is most planted in Alsace, and most Pinot Blancs from Alsace have Auxerrois in it. Mm. My brother is one of the key figures in the history of Oregon, and he was very interested in making sure Oregon had great clones or cuttings, plant material, brought in from Europe that specifically fit our cooler climate than California's cooler climate. So we weren't sure that Pinot Blanc was available in California. UC Davis had lost track of it for a mere 17 years. And so let's bring in true Pinot Blanc. And as I just mentioned, it's used interchangeably with Auxerrois, so let's bring in Auxerrois as well. There's a few people in Oregon who have it in their vineyard. Up until the 2009 vintage, we were the only winery who had ever made an Auxerrois on the West Coast. There's a guy in upstate Michigan who does one as well.
It's gorgeous. It's feminine. It's more floral than its cousins or sisters, as you put it. It's just got and we talked about this when we tasted off camera, it's got real Alsatian character to it.
It's got some basiness, some minerality to it.
Yes, the minerals, I taste that.
Apples and other fruits.
Really quite exciting. I really want to show this wine.
It is a sibling of Chardonnay and Aligoté and the grape from Muscadet.
The Aligoté. Now that makes sense.
But it is the earliest ripening of those, and so we actually had to find a slightly north-facing slope to slow
down a little bit.
The growth up on that one, the ripening up on that.
Now here's the 09 Chardonnay, which I like very much because one of the things I have a problem with in California is just over oaking, and you don't get any Chardonnay flavors. And the grape has quite enough character on its own just to make nice wines that you don't need to chop it up with too much oak. And this is a great example of that. Got great balance.
It's 100% Dijon clone, which is another of the grape clones that my brother was instrumental in making sure became available in Oregon. He actually worked to harvest in Burgundy, and that's where he had the aha moment. And the 100% Dijon clone, about 10% older neutral barrel fermentation, no malolactic, so a focused, clean Chardonnay, very food friendly.
The no malolactic. Now I get the crispness and the cleanness about that.
Yeah. I mean, and there's certainly a historical precedent for a cool climate Pinot Noir region also being pretty great at Chardonnay, i.e. that little region in eastern France.
Yeah, right, exactly. No, it's gorgeous wine. And I like its subtleness. I like it's got a full mouth feel, but you don't have that malolactic sort of greasy feeling going on there.
Well, in Oregon, malolactic acts like malolactic acts in Europe. So it really doesn't make the wines. And we also make a Chardonnay that has some malolactic that is still very elegant and restrained compared to what you normally think of in New World Chardonnays.
Now here's the flagship, one of the flagship wines of Pinot Noir, which...
Well, we call it our signature wine. We're out of our flagship for the vintage, which is our reserve level. Right. But this is what we're best known for. This is... what we call our Willamette Valley. It's the brand new vintage. We roared through the 2008 vintage.
Look at that color, isn't that gorgeous?
At the end of last year. Been in bottle since August. We always bottle this wine before the next vintage. About 25% new barrels, full mallow, but a very restrained, elegant, old world.
Gorgeous.
Old world / New World style Pinot Noir.
Well, I get that. You know what and it's just thrilling for me because in 1989 we came up to Linville College. We went to the Pinot Noir Festival, which is where, and I think in the 80s, the mid 80s is when Pinot Noirs from Oregon became pretty famous.
Well, the '83 vintage was the first one that
Was the first
put us
one
on the map,
that
and
was
then
gorgeous.
the '85.
I featured a couple of '88s back then and '89s, but what hit me about this is that I get that Burgundian character, but it's a little richer than a typical
Yeah, well,
Burgundy.
it's not Burgundy. Eventually, 100 years from now, people will say it's Oregonian.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe
Well,
only,
we should start right now
maybe
saying
only
that.
2
You know
years
what? It's
from now.
Oregonian. It's not Burgundian, but it's got a lot of meat, and that's what I like about this Pinot Noir.
One of the things people forget about, and so I'm here to remind them, a lot of people have been reminded of the famous Paris tasting in 1976, California versus France.
Right.
A mere 9 years later, people, especially wine writers, still remembered that. And once it became known that Oregon had a vintage with the '83 that was worthy of notice, they staged the tasting in New York at the International Wine Center of the '83 Burgundies versus the '83 Oregons. And a similar result happened, that the wines that all the writers had in their head, wow, these are fabulous, they must be the Burgundies. Voila, they turned, well, I would have to say voila.
Yeah, voila, that's great, yeah.
They turned out to be the Oregons.
What do you know? That's what you should say if it's in New York, right?
Yeah. And,
Well, like Johnny Carson would say, I did not know that. I did not know that, actually. So what was the Oregon
well,
status
we
of it?
came in third, and Sokolblosser was, I think, number one.
Sokolblosser, right, yeah.
And a wine
I
they
gotta
had
research
made
that.
came in second.
You have that documented somewhere? I can put that up on Facebook or something?
I don't know
Is there
if we
some
could
text on it
find that. I'll have to look for that.
Lots of raspberry, little hints of strawberry. Full. I love
Some
the
blackberry
full
and
cup.
cherry.
Yes, excellent, gorgeous wine.
It's young enough
come in my
that
cellar.
I actually opened a bottle last Friday night. This is the first time I've been out showing the wine, so I wanted to
See
get
how
a
it
little
is.
bit of prep work on
Right.
it. It's tough business, but you got to do some.
That's
prep
right.
work. And so I shared it with a friend the first night, and then the second night, well, I downed the second half myself.
Good job.
It had
Work.
definitely, the mid palate had filled in a bit more. The flavors had gotten richer. So it is a wine that's
This has
lovely
been in the
now.
bottle. How long it's been in the
but
bottle?
will be. It's been in bottle since August. So,
Okay, so it's still-
so 5 months. So over the next 3-4 years, and probably quite ageable for the next 5 to 10 years. All these wines are from the 2009 vintage, and I know the 2008 vintage has gotten incredible raves. The 2009 was the
Very
2009
warm vintage.
vintage may not, in the end, get the 100-point score that the Wine Spectator gave to the 2008 vintage for Oregon. But it will be considered one of the great vintages, I think, for Oregon in general. And for our wines, I love all four of what we're showing, and the wines that we're out of already because they were so popular, or the other wines are also pretty lovely. So.
Well, I love them all. They're gorgeous, and it's a pleasure having you here today. And
It was
welcome
great
to
to
Southern
meet you,
California.
or
and
re-meet
thank
you if we
Right.
actually
We may have met somewhere.
in the middle
Who
of the
knows?
night.
Who knows?
Back in 1989.
That's right. We were both a lot younger then.
We were both a lot younger, but we'd both had a little more to drink, I think.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Great to see you.